Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of PowerCore Productions and Podcastings. I'm your host, Javon Harrington, back to hit you with another video. And today, we are here to continue Jujutsu Kaisen Curse of Daishi, based on the Heroes of the Morphin Grid series, Part 3. As always, if you're a fan of the channel and everything else that we have to offer, then please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, and hit that bell for post notifications so you can stay up to date on everything that is PowerCore Productions and Podcastings that's to come out now and in the future. Where we last left off with our series, Yuji Itadori, the Red Jungle Fury Ranger, seemingly lost his life when Sukuna had managed to take over his body and destroy his heart. Now being declared dead by the higher-ups, Megumi and Nobara have no choice but to move on, training to get stronger as they prepare for the Kyoto-Tokyo Jujutsu Tech clash that is only less than 1 month away. But as the cursed spirits and the animal spirits begin to make their move, seeing that they are ready to launch their attacks on the new world, how will our heroes bounce back as they train in preparation for the battles that are to come? And also, what truly happened between Yuji and Sukuna? What deal have they struck with one another? And how will the machinations of the King of Curses play a role in the coming future for the Rangers? For all this and more, stay tuned as we now continue Jujutsu Kaisen Curse of Daishi, based on the Heroes of the Morphin Grid series, Part 3. As always, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. At Jujutsu High, Megumi and Nobara would sit beside one another, lamenting over the death of their fallen friend. In the end, despite the training that they had undergone by their master Gojo, it seemed as though it wasn't enough, not just in terms of their cursed energies, but their animal spirits as well. If that was how they performed against the special grade, then they weren't going to stand a chance. From out of nowhere, they would be met by 3 of the second years, that being in Maki, Panda, who was a literal panda, and Toge. They introduced themselves, Maki being a bit abrasive at first before Panda had to reel her in, telling her that they had actually just lost their comrade recently, and now Maki just felt bad. Nobara and Megumi asked what they were doing there, and the second years explained that they were there for their training, in preparation for the Goodwill event with their sister school, Kyoto, as there were only 2 Jujutsu schools in Japan, theirs being in Tokyo, and the other one being in Kyoto. They had around a month or so before the event, and that would be the amount of time that they would need for their preparations. But what really shocked Megumi and Nobara was when they saw the 3 higher-ups all having morphers of their own. Wait, you have morphers too? Nobara would ask. Oh yeah. You guys aren't the only ones Gojo trained to use the ranger abilities. Of course, they're still pretty new, and each one's different in their own unique ways. As you know, Jujutsu sorcerers were actually in combination with another order that fought a long time ago, that being known as the Order of the Claw, You see, during the early stages of humanity, there were two different sources of powers on Earth. Those who chose to fight using their animal spirits, the power that could be brimmed from within, and then there were those capable of manipulating cursed energy. Now, while both sides fought for the good of humanity, they were usually separate and kept to themselves. Megumi was deep in thought, but then he remembered the story. You mean before the birth of the first master, right? Salmon. Bonito flakes. What did he just say? Oh, my friend Toge here. He has a special curse technique that allows him to use his voice in a unique way. Because of this, he has to use limited speech. Otherwise, if he were to just speak loosely, it could cause some devastating effects. It's that powerful, huh? Salmon. Shark. Anyway, it's just like how the prophecy said. A master in Jujutsu and a master with the animal spirits, a man and a woman, came together and gave birth to the first master, one capable of using both. The master that was able to fight against the king of the beasts, Daishi, and the king of the curses, in Sukuna. The three fighting in what became known as the three-way deadlock. And since then, the two schools merged together as one. And now, we are Jujutsu masters, more than just sorcerers or fighters, capable of using cursed techniques along with our animal spirits. Now, of course, when it comes to these ranger powers, these weren't actually a part of the order long ago. This is something Gojo introduced to us rather recently. So, what about Kyoto? Do they have powers as well? Well, they do actually. But they're different from ours, Maki Wachamin. They use their power in a different way. If we are the Jungle Fury, they are the Wild Force. So, two sets of rangers in Japan. One based in Kyoto and the other one's in Tokyo. Why aren't they more on the news? I mean, you'd think that we'd be all over the place. Well, we try to keep it down to a minimum as much as possible. Even with Kyoto and with Tokyo, there aren't that many rangers compared to other masters. And even then, we only use them when the situation calls for it. It's best to avoid using your ranger power unless it's absolutely necessary. But still though, with the recent curse activity, along with what happened a year ago, there's no telling what's going to be brought out to the light nowadays. So that's why we're going to be in charge of training you, Jaguar and Cheetah. We're going to get you up to our level, and we think we can do it in no time. Your level? And what makes you so different from us? Well, let's show them, guys. Panda, Maki, and Toge would all take out their morphers and morph together at once. As they transformed with the bright lights that illuminated them, Maki would turn into the Black Jungle Fury Ranger with the spirit of the bat. Panda would transform into the Green Jungle Fury Ranger with the spirit of the elephant. And Toge would transform into the Blue Jungle Fury Ranger with the spirit of the shark. Megumi would point out that he was blue also, but Panda pointed out that there were two different types of blue. And traditionally, for them, they didn't actually go by their colors, although you could point them out. Instead of being referred to by their colors, they just went by their animal spirits. Maki had the spirit of the bat, Panda the spirit of the elephant, and as for Toge, the spirit of the shark. But more than that though, Nobara would note that their uniforms were different also. Panda would explain that they had achieved a higher form of animal spirit a long time ago, that being known as their master mode. When they asked more about this, Pando would explain that Master Mode was the next step in their training, to go beyond just their regular state. For them, they achieved Master Mode of their Ranger powers, and that was where Megumi and Nobara were going to be aiming to reach as well. In the meantime, at the coroner's office, Yuji had woken back up. He was on a table and he was butt naked, but all the same, he was just happy to be alive and that the hole in his chest was now gone. Gojo welcomed his student back to the world of the living, telling him that it seemed as though Sukuna had a change of heart bringing him back to life. He asked if the two of them talked about anything, but Yuji couldn't remember. Gojo had his suspicions, but for now, just to have his student back alive and well again was more than enough for him. But now, it was time to work on his training. Yuji got dressed, and he wondered when he was going to go back and meet the others. But Gojo would explain that Yuji was going to be training in secret in order to get him prepared for the Kyoto Goodwill event. Yuji was wondering why he would have to train in secret, and that's when Gojo revealed that it was best if the higher-ups thought he was dead. That way, there wouldn't be any more attempts on his life, and it would allow him to train properly. Yuji was unable to properly channel his cursed energy, as well as drawing out the spirit of his tiger. It was with that Gojo would work on helping him control and use his power. There was manipulating cursed energy, and then there was using cursed technique. And then, the final stage was learning how to draw out and use one's own animal spirit. Gojo demonstrated this for Yuji, and then revealed what his training was going to entail. He gave him a little doll. It was a chubby monkey with long arms with boxing gloves. This was one of the dolls that was made by their principal, who used cursed technique in order to create dolls that could be funneled and used to come to life. With this little doll, Yuji would be watching movies. But there was a purpose behind this training after all. It served threefold. Yuji's training was to allow him to control his emotions. That way, he could watch a movie and not get too riled up. He had to maintain a steady flow of cursed energy into the doll to keep it asleep. If the flow became disrupted for any reason, the doll would wake up and punch him in the face. If Yuji's animal spirit got out of control, causing the doll to get agitated and go wild, then it would punch him in the face once again. For Yuji, he wasn't sure if this was really going to work as well as he thought it would, but seeing as how he didn't really have much of a choice, this was just going to be what his training would have to comprise of for now. Under Gojo, he was going to allow Yuji to bring out his fullest potential, and they were going to unlock his Master Mode. Yuji wondered what he meant by this, but Gojo would explain that Master Mode was basically the evolution of his Ranger power, and it was something that could only be unlocked through intense training to master not only his cursed energy, but also his animal spirit as well. While Yuji was beginning his training, Gojo was being escorted back to Tokyo Tech headquarters, as he had a meeting with the principal. As they were driving on the road though, Gojo could sense that something was coming. He would tell the driver to stop and to leave him be. The driver was a bit worried about Gojo and his antics, but Gojo assured him that everything was fine. After leaving off, Gojo, now knowing that he was secluded, would make his move. "I can sense you, you know. No point in hiding, you might as well come out." "So, you're the famed Satoru Gojo I've heard so much of." The cursed spirit, the one who had a volcano for a head, looked at him with his single eye, looking rather unimpressed. So much for the Wolf Master. I don't see anything special about you at all. Oh, really? Now you've done gone and hurt my feelings. So, what can I do for you this fine day? Before he could finish his sentence, Jogo would ambush Satoru immediately, blasting him at almost point-blank range with volcanic fire to the face, letting off a series of explosions along the roadside. When the dust cleared and the smoke settled, it looked as though Gojo had his head blown off. Jogo just smiled confidently. So much for that. I don't know what Geto was so worried about, needing to use a prison realm. Don't be ridiculous. Wow, you guys really don't know when to let someone speak, do you? That's rather rude, you know. But I... Oh, don't worry about your attacks. They didn't do anything at all. No need to be alarmed. Huh? But I know I made contact. What's going on here? Oh, I know. You're a little confused, aren't you? Well, let me demonstrate. Gojo would hold out his hand as he beckoned for the cursed spirit to come forward. Come on, touch it. I'm not sensing any ill intent. Alright. Jogo would walk and come face to face with Gojo as he held out his hand towards Satoru's. Just when it seemed as though their fingers were about to connect, there was a strong force keeping them away. It was just mere inches. They were so close, yet it felt as though they were so far. As Jogo felt it, he realized that this was the infinity, the space between them. Gojo, in the meanwhile, held his hand. No need to be alarmed. You and I could stay like this for a while. Now, you want to know about the lone wolf. I normally don't do this because, if I'm being honest, you're really not worth my time, but I figure I should reward you for your efforts. Gojo held up his other wrist, flicking forward his morpher as he yelled, "Jungle Beast! Spirit, unleash!" Instantly, the howl of the wolf would echo all throughout the mountainside. In a bright flash of purple, the Jungle Fury Wolf Ranger would be revealed. Still holding on to Jogo's hand, Gojo would hit him with a barrage of attacks, almost at blinding speeds, hitting him directly in the gut and causing him to cough up blood. Jogo would be sent flying into the air. However, before he could fall to the ground, Satoru would hit him with a barrage of attacks, a combination of punches, elbows, knee strikes, and kicks, all well coordinated, faster than the cursed spirit was capable of comprehending, until eventually he found himself falling to the ground in a complete daze. That flurry of attack was more than he could have possibly anticipated. There was no way he could be this strong. He absolutely refused to believe so. The cursed spirit would become reckless with his attacks now. Using his fire-based abilities, he would launch them at Gojo repeatedly. However, Gojo would dodge them all effortlessly, as he continued his assault on the cursed spirit over and over again. It had now dawned on Jogo the error that he had made in challenging Gojo. Seeing as how he was pushed to his wit's end, he was preparing to use his ultimate technique. However, before he could use it, Gojo would disappear, before reappearing with Yuji, Yuji wondering where he had gone and how he had gotten here. He could have sworn he was just back at the base watching movies. Then he looked up and saw that he was in the arms of a Power Ranger. Gojo would quickly take off his helmet and look back at his student, his blindfold still on. Whoa! Sensei! Your suit, it's incredible! I never thought I'd get to see your ranger form. You never used it when you were practicing or sparring with me, Nobara, and Megami. Oh, I had been meaning to show it off to you for a while. I could have sworn that I did. Anyway, I brought you here to show you a little bit of a demonstration. Huh? Isn't that Sukuna's vessel? Are you that cowardly that you would use this young man as a shield? Oh, no, I'm not doing that at all. This is just a teaching moment. Teaching moment? You dare make light of me? Well, I mean, I might as well get some benefit out of you. I mean, after all, you're pretty weak. Huh? Weak? Weak am I? I will show you the error of your ways. Coffin of the Iron Mountain. Domain expansion. Gojo and Yuji would look as the area around them seemingly changed. It seemed as though they were trapped inside of the heart of a volcano. Yuji became very worried. However, Gojo would tell him that everything would be fine as long as he stayed close. As they were there, Gojo would explain that there were different types of techniques. Techniques that could increase a user's own power. You see, for a Jujutsu sorcerer, there was something known as a domain, and this technique was known as the domain expansion. Inside of one's own domain, their attacks were at their most strongest, almost guaranteed to hit no matter what. It was then that Satoru would reveal that this was the reason for the unity between Pai Shui masters and Jujutsu sorcerers. You see, the issue that they had run into long ago, whenever they fought against a powerful cursed spirit, was that once they were trapped inside of a domain, it usually meant that their own power was made irrelevant. But with the combination of the two, one could be capable of achieving a feat far greater than anything they could have possibly realized. Gojo would hold his hands together as the visor on his helmet would open, the bandages around his eyes being removed. With his eyes closed, Gojo would hold his hands together, two fingers that would cross. The only way to beat a domain was to counter with another domain of their own, and in that instance, the one that was the strongest would win. As he used his own domain of the infinite void, the area would change again instantly. It seemed as though they were in the middle of the universe. For Jogo, everything seemed to pass by so slowly. He could feel and sense everything, and yet he knew nothing. But then as he looked, he saw where he stood. Before him was the head of the wolf, its eyes mesmerizing in every way. Yuji stood beside his sensei, Gojo, as he walked over to the cursed spirit. Grabbing it by its head, he effortlessly twisted and pulled it off. And with that, he had gained the victory, ending the fight. Before they knew it, they were back where they had begun. Yuji couldn't believe of what he had seen, what he had felt and experienced. This was the peak of Jujutsu sorcery and the usage of the animal spirit. For Jogo, he was still left in a trance. There was no way that they could have possibly have felt this. This was the ultimate power, the one thing capable of defeating even the strongest of cursed spirits and animal spirits. Gojo demorphed. He was preparing to take back the head of the cursed spirit to try to gain some information before exorcising it. From out of nowhere, another cursed spirit would appear, one capable in mastery over nature itself. It would rescue the head of Jogo before disappearing back into the night. As Gojo looked around with Yuji, he realized that now multiple high-grade cursed spirits were starting to work together, and this could prove to be a bit troublesome. In the meantime, Megumi and Nobara were continuing their training with the second years. They were progressing fine though, although they still weren't quite ready for the final test. The test that would allow them to enter into their jungle master mode. However, things would kind of take a turn for the worse. That being when two fellow third years from Kyoto would arrive to pay them a visit. That being in Io Todo and Mai Zenin. They had decided to do a bit of intimidation to their younger rivals. Mai antagonizing Nobara, getting a chance to see what the new ranger was all about, revealing her own status as a ranger. As for Todo, he had his own reasons for being there. As he introduced himself to the Blue Jungle Fury Ranger, he had a specific question he wanted to ask him. He asked him what kind of girls he liked, and depending on how boring his answer was, he might have to beat him to death. Megumi thought about it for an honest moment. Nobara, Mai, everyone looking at them, wondering what his answer was going to be. Megumi finally replied that he wanted a girl with a nice personality, and that was all he needed. Todo, he simply looked at him. A mixture of sadness and pity entering into his eyes, as he realized right then and there, he was gonna have to kill him. He pulled out what appeared to be a cell phone from his pocket, as he yelled, "Wild access!" It was then that they would get a first glimpse at what they would have to go up against. Standing before them was none other than the Iron Bison, the Black Wild Force Ranger. Seeing the trouble he was going to be in, Megumi would pull out his morpher as well and morph into the Blue Jungle Fury Ranger. The Jaguar and the Bison, preparing for combat. Megumi rushed forward towards Todo and delivered a series of punches to his chest, but it appeared to do absolutely nothing. Todo simply laughed, stating if that was really the limit of his animal spirit, then he shouldn't bother showing up, as he grabbed him by the face and slammed him into the ground. Nobara tried to get involved also, as she morphed into the yellow Cheetah Jungle Fury Ranger. However, she would be stopped in her tracks as well, as Mai had morphed instantly also, turning into the White Wild Force White Tiger Ranger, grabbing her and slamming her back to the ground once again, as she held her gun to the back of her head. She warned that even if she was in her ranger form, a few shots of this would take her out just as easily. As they watched on, the fighting would continue between Megumi and between Todo for a while. It only took a few good shots for Todo to knock Megumi out of his ranger form. He had already been battered, beaten, and bruised, and he wasn't sure of just how much more he could take. Todo charged for another strike, this time going for the piercing bull. However, before he could get any closer, the elephant ranger would appear out of nowhere, stopping him in his tracks, the horns and the tusks coming to blows. Panda telling him that there was no need to go that far, as both he and Toge would break up the fight. Mai had fought with Nobara for some bit, and she was preparing to unleash her next attack. That was until a swooping fan would come out of nowhere, knocking the gun out of her hand, and it was none other than Maki, who had saved Nobara and stopped her sister from her pointless antics. Both Mai and Toto would retreat for now, leaving their final warning, stating that they were going to need to get a lot stronger if they were going to make it during the event in 1 month's time. In the meanwhile, Gojo had stopped to pay a visit to the principal of the Kyoto school. As the two of them spoke to one another, the Kyoto principal would partly take responsibility for Yuji's untimely demise, remarking that in the old days, they didn't have to rely on stupid fancy gadgets like morphers or things of that nature. And if he really thought that it was going to make a difference, then Gojo was sadly mistaken. However, Gojo just continued on with his childish-like demeanor, as he warned the old man that he would be wise to watch where he steps, and that what he called rebellious students, Gojo saw them as the ones of the future, the ones who would rise in his place, and would replace his and the higher-ups' decrepit, old-school mentality. If they continued on the way they were now, then they were never going to make it in this world. There was a shift that was coming, one that was going to change and rock the very foundations of the Jujutsu world itself. Cursed spirits, animal spirits, masters, and everything in between. There were going to be new faces that would arise. The principal asked if he was going to be the one who would be the face of this revolution, but Gojo remarked differently. He was just going to lead it. He wouldn't be the face of it, but the ones who would, he would see soon enough. As he made his way, leaving and taking his time, he went back to meet with Yuji, as it was time to up their training. But it wasn't just the Jujutsu sorcerers or the cursed spirits who were making their moves as well. No, there was another faction who was now ready to join and make their way on the prowl. As a woman with 2 buns in her hair, she would make her way into a building. It was seemingly empty, with no one there at all. She took a single ring and placed it in the middle of the floor. As she performed a small ritual, she would summon what was known as a Renshi, a mindless foot soldier. She took the pendant of that of the hawk and placed it on its forehead. After doing so, the Renshi would transform, becoming a monstrous demon, that based off of the spirit of the hawk itself. His name was Connoisseur. Master Connoisseur, it is nice to see you again. Lord of the Sky. So, after all this time, I have finally made my return. You are the one known as Camille. You serve under Daishi, do you not? I do, Master Connoisseur. And what business do I have with you? What era have I been brought into? Many refer to it as the new era, my lord, The new era? I was around during the time of the Daishin era, an era where the animal spirits were in control. I ask, does that bastard Sukuna still exist? He has recently found a vessel. A vessel? A human? Really? The king of the curses? He has been humbled so little that he must now take the form of a human? How preposterous! Do tell, where is Lord Daishi? Master is currently still sealed away. What? He is still sealed? And what have you done about this? I am searching for a vessel now. You? Be careful how you speak, child. You dare to place the king of the beast with the vessel of a human? It is only temporary, my lord. After all, the vessel is only to serve as a feeding host for the master, until he is strong enough to take over and assume a much more powerful form. It is the fastest way to bring him back. Then see to it done. I can sense an ever-growing presence. This is the new era, you say. And I do ask, what about the other overlords? Jellica, Grisaka. What is of them? Jellica, her tomb is still being searched now for her revival. As for Grisaka, we must search for him again as he was sealed away a year ago. A year ago? What happened a year ago? It happened during the night of December 24th. Lord Grisaka was in a three-way battle against a cursed user, as well as a Jujutsu sorcerer, and he sadly was sealed in the process. The night of 1,000 curses. Well, there's no point dwelling now. Get me up to speed on everything that is going on. It is time for the King of Beast to make his return. This concludes Jujutsu Kaisen, Curse of Daishi, based on the Heroes of the Morphing Grid series, Part 3. As always, if you're a fan of the channel and everything else that we have to offer, then please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, and hit that bell for post notifications so you can stay up to date on everything that is PowerCore Productions and Podcasting stats to come out now and in the future. Stay tuned for Monday as we wrap up What If Deku Was Iron Man? My Hero Academia Armored Adventures, Part 9, the finale. But anyway, that's going to do it for the end of today's video. I'm Javon Harrington with PowerCore Productions and Podcastings, signing off, and I'll see you next time.